If you open up your program before we begin, a few quick announcements. One is there will be on December 5th a piano concert here as well, put on by Ballet Russe Arts. So be sure to stay tuned and join us for that as well. You'll also see in the inside cover a QR code here where if you would like to make your donation for the concert electronically, you can do so, or there's a donation box in the back also. Suggested donation of $10 per individual or $20 per household. If you're watching online, you can also use the donate button online. You can, of course, donate more than the suggested donation, or just enjoy the beautiful music for free if you're unable to donate as well. It's just a suggested donation, and so that's absolutely fine also. The other thing, only other announcement in your program, in the back page, you'll see an advertisement for the virtual fall fair and auction, in which you can auction off some of your things or participate in the auction for other things. That's in the back, and we're kicking off that fall fair and auction today in the parish hall after the concert. If you'd like to go through, there's some beautiful knitted goods and Christmas ornaments and handmade crafts and things that you can purchase as well if you would like. All proceeds go toward the life of St. Paul's here, including our wonderful music ministry as well. Many people, I think of the organ, at least the organ by itself, and not accompanying a choir or an orchestra or something else, as maybe just a bit bland or boring. Obviously, you don't hear, and that's great to see you here. But I think the people who think that, and I've said it before and probably will say it again, people who think that way have probably never heard a master organist like Mark play. I think it's safe to say that most people, not only in this room, just most people, will never meet a more skilled player and musician than Mark Meyer. And so I think you're in for a treat here, both for his skill and artistry, for the diversity of the program that he's able to pull off so well as well. You're also in for a treat with his wife Virginia's introductions and reflections on the music as she narrates us and draws us through the story, really, of the program today. And so it's overwhelming thanks to Mark and Virginia for all that you've done to pull together this amazing program. And so I said at the beginning, I'd like you to hold your applause until the end, and that's true, except for right now, as we welcome Mark and Virginia to this concert.
We're going to begin by getting right into the music with Trumpet Tune. Thank you for coming into this building or attending via YouTube to listen to this organ recital. This event came about because sometimes Mark Meyer, who's sitting behind that console on your left, must give in to his desire to play a potpourri of music. I am your humble narrator. I will read the research that Mark has done on the pieces and composers, and I'm also Mark's page turner. I'm the Vanna White on Mark's Wheel of Fortune. Let us begin with a quote from music historian Richard Taruskin about our next composer. Quote, "The life of Fanny Mendelssohn Hensel is compelling proof that women's failure to compete with men on the compositional playing field has been the result of social prejudice and patriarchal mores, which in the 19th century granted only men the right to make the decisions in the bourgeois households," end quote. Fanny's own father was only tolerant, not supportive of his daughter's activities as a composer. He wrote to her that, quote, "Music will perhaps become Felix's profession, while for you it can and must be only an ornament." During much of their musical careers, Felix did not encourage his sister's musical gifts. He even arranged with Fanny to have some of her songs published under his name rather than hers. This led to an embarrassing moment in 1842 when Felix was received at Buckingham Palace by Queen Victoria. The Queen announced that she planned to sing Italian, her favorite of his songs. Felix responded honestly that it was indeed written by Fanny. Felix and Fanny Mendelssohn were born into a Hamburg-Berlin banking family who were Christian Jews. In fact, I learned just a few minutes ago that today is Fanny's birthday. It is said that Felix Mendelssohn was richly endowed materially, mentally, and morally. Some of his most well-known works were written when he was a teenager. In addition to being a renowned composer, he was a skilled concert organist. He is credited with reviving the popularity of organ music in the 19th century, because very few significant organ compositions were written between the death of Johann Sebastian Bach in 1750 and Mendelssohn's organ works in the 1830s and 40s. The sonata you will hear is somewhat based on the Martin Luther hymn, "From the Depths of Woe I Cry." We included the hymn in the program so you can read and meditate on the words. Now we will listen to Fanny Mendelssohn Hensel's chorale and Felix Mendelssohn's Sonata 3 in A major. In 1995, Mark and I moved to a mill condo in downtown Lowell. I walked 3 short blocks to my job at Lowell High School and past the lovely St. Anne's Church. This church is where John Ogasapian was organist at the time, and he was also a professor at the University of Massachusetts Lowell. A few years ago, John's wife, having attended services at St. Paul's, donated much of his music CD library to the St. Paul's Fall Fair. As a result, Mark now has many of those CDs in his own very large collection. After hearing these contemporary pieces by John Ogasapian, we'll move back in time to Johann Sebastian Bach to a piece based on a different kind of hymn tune. This is one of Bach's most recognizable organ pieces. In the program notes, it is mentioned that the hymn writer, Philip Nicolai, wrote the hymn at the time of an epidemic. Nicolai was a Lutheran pastor in the late 1500s in Unna, Westphalia, in what is now Germany. His parsonage overlooked the churchyard, where as many as 30 people were buried in a day. 1,300 people in his town died from that plague. It's interesting to think that this powerful hymn came about at that dark time in history. The translation that we have in the hymnal 1982 begins, "Sleepers, wake, a voice astounds us." Another common translation is, "Wake, awake, for night is flying." Now we will hear 2 preludes on early American hymn tunes, and then Wachet auf. As you read in your program, Cortege et Litany is one of the most famous organ pieces of the 20th century, and Marcel Dupuy was one of the most prominent figures of 20th century French organ music. Most of his organ works are technically demanding and have been described as ranging from moderately to extremely difficult. How hard could it be? Oh, it is? Oh, it is extremely difficult. One of the reasons that Marc chose this piece was that it felt appropriate during this time of our epidemic. It opens with the cortege like a solemn funeral procession, expressing sadness and loss. It is hymn-like, and the melody has some upward leaps, maybe suggesting hopeful longing or prayers rising up to heaven. Then the litany enters. It is a chant-like, repetitive theme, repeated and persistent like a prayer, as if trying to get God's attention. After many repetitions and development of this chant, the cortege theme returns, enveloping the litany with majestic and uplifting sounds. The triumphant combining of the cortege and litany themes resolves in a toccata-like conclusion. The solemnity of the cortege has transformed into joyful praise. This reminded Mark of Psalm 126, which we chanted in our worship a few Sundays ago. May those who sow in tears reap with shouts of joy. Here is the cortege et litany. The next two pieces are by Alfred Wiedoeft, a well-known composer of church music. Mark and I have known Al and his wife Sue since the 1980s, when Al and Mark were in their earlier days as church musicians in northern New Jersey. Al earned his master's degree in organ performance from Montclair State University in New Jersey, my alma mater. He has over 300 choral and organ works in print, and over 100 of his hymn tunes are published in hymnals throughout the world. The second piece by Al Wiedoeft comes from his collection of organ compositions called All Nature Sings, Organ Music Celebrating the Joy of Creation. It is based on the Scottish Highland tune Bunasan, which you will quickly recognize. The reason for the title, Like the First Bird, will be obvious to you after you hear the first few notes. Please enjoy In Paradisum and Like the First Bird. we thought this might be a good time for a 7th inning stretch. Would anyone like to stand up and give a stretch other than me? Mark? He's going to stand up and stretch. It's a good time for that. You might be wondering, how does one become an accomplished page turner like myself? And all I can do is tell you my story. Mark and I had been keeping company for a while when he came to me one day and said very seriously, "Virginia, will you turn my pages?" And I said, "Mark, if you want me to turn your pages, you're going to have to put a ring on it." Yeah. You're not kidding, girls. You know what I'm talking about. And he did, eventually. All right, everybody feel good? The next piece by John Philip Sousa, so get ready for a change of pace. Although Sousa's marches are often associated with military and parade bands, they were also part of the ballroom dance repertoire, such as the two-step of the 1890s. Marches even formed the basis for some hymns. Interestingly, Sousa had a low opinion of the newly emerging recording industry and never conducted his band for a recording. He is also known for having an important role in the development of the sousaphone, a tuba-like instrument. One writer says this about Sousa: "He saw himself as a tasteful purveyor of entertainment. He was not concerned with elevating the audience, but with pleasing it." So if you do not feel elevated by Mark's performance of the Washington Post March, at least we hope that you will be pleased with it. Here is the Washington Post March. fun. Now it's time to bring our blood pressure down a few notches. Song from a Secret Garden has no connection with the classic children's book, The Secret Garden, or the musical, A Secret Garden, or the preschool, Our Secret Garden, at First Parish Church just down the street from St. Paul's. There is a close connection between Jane Holstein, the arranger of Song from a Secret Garden, and Joel Rainey, the arranger of the last piece on today's program. Like Jane, Joel is also a music editor at Hope Publishing Company in Carroll Stream, Illinois. Often they give concerts together, with Jane on the organ and Joel on the piano. We think that this is a joyful, joyful finale to today's organ music selections. Here are the concluding pieces of our concert, Song from a Secret Garden and Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee.